Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the number one sports podcast on the entire planet. I'm your host, Drake Tharp, and we have a banger of an episode for y'all today. We're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers. We're going to talk about Odell Beckham. We're going to talk about some stars. We're going to give you some NFL power rankings per usual. And yeah, let's kick off the show. First thing I'd like to talk about is, someone I've kind of been right about over the past year, someone who I've hated probably my entire life as a Chicago Bears fan. We're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers. Let's just say I was right about moving on for both sides, okay? I think it was about 6 months ago where we talked about Aaron Rodgers and the Packers moving on for both sides, for both being the benefit. Packers maybe getting something out of it. Aaron Rodgers getting a fresh start in a city where, he hasn't won a championship in a decade. It was going to be a good thing for both sides, and, it was a pretty well-set thing, according to rumors, according to media, according to sources, that Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay were going to move on, pending a loss in the playoffs, and, well, once again, that happened, and it wasn't a good team that beat them either. The 49ers, a strong holding defense. They were a run-dominant team towards the end of the season last year, and they put the Packers to sleep in cold weather, in their home territory, and, it was time to move on for both sides. The problem is the city and the staff of Green Bay is obsessed with this guy. They're obsessed with his God complex. They're obsessed with this guy acting like he's the smartest person in the room wherever he goes. They're obsessed with the potential-driven capability of winning 5 rings. Well, in reality, he hasn't. He's won 1, and quite frankly, he hasn't been in a Super Bowl in the last 10 years either. So, they're obsessed with having this regular season monster around. He's got a few MVPs under his belt, but he hasn't delivered in playoff time. But, the talent is there. Aaron Rodgers, I will wholeheartedly say, is the most talented quarterback I've ever seen on a football field. The reads he makes, the progressions, the off-the-back foot throws, the Hail Marys. There's so much different things he's done to, brutalize, my Bears to torture me over the years, but I respect it. I respect the guy. I respect his play, but, he's a choke artist. And let's just be in reality. Let's just be real here. And now with no star receiver, Aaron Rodgers is a lost puppy, as well as the entire organization. He's got Allen Lazard, who might be in the top 30 discussion. He's a 6'5" behemoth, but he's no Devontae Adams like they have last year. They should have sold, as we felt, they should have felt the end of this era of Aaron Rodgers after the NFC divisional round last year. Now, rather than getting anything in return, Green Bay will have to watch Aaron Rodgers retire at the end of this year. Yes, I firmly believe that's going to happen. I think it's becoming more and more blatant as we watch Aaron Rodgers' body language, as we watch, the Packers dwindle into irrelevancy, as they dwindle into, mediocrity, per se. And, Aaron Rodgers is close to 40 now. I think he might even be like 38, 39. He's close to 40. He's done everything he could for the city of Green Bay. And just moving on at this point, I don't know if it's good for his career. I don't know if it's good for his legacy. I don't know if it's good, for both sides. I don't know if he's got the talent anymore. And the loss to the Lions was 100% his fault. They played great defense, which the Lions, obviously, one of the worst defenses in the NFL. It's a rare occasion that we see that, but they did. And this is the rock bottom scenario for Aaron Rodgers. And, Green Bay, if we're being completely honest, because they've gotten nothing out of it. They've gotten nothing on, the thought of selling him before the season, the thought of, having a 3-6 record midseason and not getting any better. So it was time to move on for both sides as we see it now, and I've been saying this for 6 months. The obsession with the city, how they love him, how the organization has loved him. It hasn't worked for 10 years. They should have seen that after the loss last year, and now there's lost puppies all around the organization, including Aaron Rodgers himself. So that's my Aaron Rodgers take. I just wanted to humbly say I was right, as I always have been humble when I am right. If you've been a watcher through 53 podcasts now. Next guy we're going to talk about, speaking of humble, Odell Beckham Jr., the sweepstakes. Do we even call it a sweepstakes at this point? Because what we've been seeing is teams said to be involved, contenders per se. But are they contenders? The 3-6 Rams, the Chiefs, who quite frankly don't need him, the Bills, who already have a great young core. The only realistic options I see at this point are the Giants, who are 6-2, have a weak spot at receiver, have proven that, based on their defensive performances, teams they've beat, Barkley going off, and they're a contender in the NFC, okay? We can't put it, to the side now. We can't call it luck at any point. They're 6-2. It's midway through the season. They're a contender in my book, okay? Also, Dallas Cowboys. Weak spot at receiver. CeeDee Lamb is out. Michael Gallup might be out for the season. And they're missing a receiver. And Jerry Jones loves the idea of bringing Odell Beckham in as a number one guy. But do you bring an out-of-prime, off an ACL tear guy into an organization where you're expected to be great? It's a risk for him. It's a risk for, reputation. It's a risk for teams. I just think, this free agent sweepstakes for a guy who's past his prime off an ACL tear is, kind of over-exaggerated. I think there's a lot better receivers, in this league at the number 2 spot who, I just don't understand. He had a great Super Bowl performance, but he's off an ACL tear. This isn't the same Odell we've seen, as rookie through year 3. And it's just teams that I see, who have a great chance at winning the Super Bowl, being interested in this guy. He's a great 3, and that's why I like the idea of him going back home to New York. They have nothing to lose there at the receiving spot. That's a weak spot for them. Teams that have been interested in Odell Beckham, like the Rams, Chiefs, Bills, I don't honestly think need him. Cowboys might, but I think it's a big ball in both courts to send Odell off to Dallas, because Dallas, one of the most reputable franchises in the league. Odell Beckham, one of the most notable superstars in the NFL. There's going to be a lot of pressure there for a 30-year-old off an ACL tear. He had a great Super Bowl performance, but he's 30 years old, out of his prime, off an injury. I think it's very over-exaggerated right now. The sweepstakes continue to rise. It's news we hear every day. It's top of the ESPN headlines. And, he had a okay year with the Rams last year, but I think overall it's just over-exaggerated. And, whoever gets Odell, I don't think it's going to be a Super Bowl carrying acquisition as we're the media is portraying it to be. So I like the Giants a lot here, going back home based on, their team needs. They're technically a contender, and, a passing game, a receiver better than the guys that they already have would definitely help them out. But I think Dallas is a little too much for, both sides to handle, and the teams that want him, really that we've heard of, the Rams, Chiefs, and Bills, they don't really need him, in my opinion. And the Rams are 3-6 now. I don't think anything offensively is, necessary where Odell's going to completely change it for them. That's my take on that. The sweepstakes, the over-exaggerated sweepstakes of Odell Beckham Jr. Anyway, we're going to jump to the NBA now. We're going to talk about kind of a surprise we've seen in the start of the season, the NBA Western Conference. And so mainly I'd like to talk about the Utah Jazz. Okay, the NBA Western Conference, it's flipped upside down. The Jazz and the teams like the Jazz and Blazers are near the top, while the Warriors, the Lakers, and Timberwolves are near the bottom. 3 teams that we thought were going to break out and, be in that playoff picture. Well, quite frankly, they're not. And what does this say? While Lauri Markkanen is having an all-star season and Colin Sexton is playing great, this team is at the top of the Western Conference, and, super teams, as we'd like to call them, with the Lakers having Russell Westbrook, LeBron, Anthony Davis, T-Wolves getting Gobert, having Karl Towns, D'Angelo Russell, and Anthony Edwards, kind of near the bottom of that conference. I think they're a little under 500 right now. I know it's early, but what does this say about the dynamic of the NBA? Are you saying that chemistry might matter a little bit instead of building super teams, just getting every superstar around the corner for your team? I think it worked in, the early 2010s, but right now, if we look at the dynamics, we see a team with a top superstar with a group of good role players and maybe a great number 2. If we take a look at the Celtics, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, role player extravaganza. If we look at the Suns, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, role player extravaganza. Even DeAndre Ayton, I'd say he's better than a role player, but when you have the best role players, that's a championship team right there. I think that's what we're seeing now. And when you see teams like the Clippers, Nets, Lakers all fall after trying to build the best superstar-driven team possible, I think that it's a dynamic that is dying in the NBA with getting, the best players possibly, if you get 3 ball-dominant players, it's not going to work. And I think we're starting to figure that out. When you have the Jazz, they have a ball-dominant guy in Colin Sexton. The rest of the guys are great role players. But when you have, say, the Nets, Kyrie, KD, Ben Simmons probably bringing the ball up. Kyrie, maybe a possession. Kevin Durant, a possession. It just doesn't work anymore. And it boggles my mind that, teams that have a superstar, they want to spend all of their money on another superstar, and it doesn't work anymore. It might be fun in 2K, but no, this isn't 2K, and this isn't 2010 anymore. The super team dynamic should be over at this point. And I mean, the Warriors built their team from the bottom up. I think the super team dynamic with Kevin Durant was the only unstoppable one. When you have 2 of the greatest scorers of all time, okay, let's get that out of the way. But other than that, when you have 3 ball dominant players on the Lakers and 3 ball dominant players for the Nets, it's a dynamic that is broken. Okay, and I think we're seeing the end of it here, and in the future we'll start to see a lot of teams pay their superstars more and then fill out with role players who know their role and have the best role players in the NBA. That's how it should be. Anyway, that's my take on the NBA here today. The Surprise Jazz. That's the headline. The Surprise Jazz. Surprise Jazz music is never a bad thing, but we got the Surprise Utah Jazz. It's not something you hear all the time, but day and age, baby. Anyway, we got the Fab 5 betting. Here we go. I got 5 leg parlay here, 2 money line, 2 over under, or 2 spread bets, and 1 over under. Here we go. It's all NFL. Seahawks plus 2.5, Tennessee plus 1, money line Eagles, money line Ravens, and Dallas and Green Bay over 43 points. That is your Fab 5 bets. If you want to win some money, lay some cash down on that sucker right there. I can't promise you anything. I wish I could, but I'm not a psychic. But anywho, that's what I see. NFL Power Rankings, main event time. Here we go. Number 10, I got the Bengals. Well, after a pathetic performance against the Cleveland Browns the week prior, they've certainly clapped back with a well-needed offensive performance against the Panthers, with Joe Mixon putting up 5 touchdowns and a record-setting fantasy football day. They found what they need to do, and once Jamar Chase returns, expect a surefire playoff offense. I see them as a wild card spot. If they can get their offense under control, maybe another Super Bowl push. I don't know if the Bills and Chiefs, though, they're in a league of their own. But the Bengals, who knows? They pulled off the surprise last year. We could certainly see another surprise this year. Number 9, I got the Seahawks. They continue to show they're a solid football team, with a win over Arizona at home and recorded 4 sacks against a scrambling Kyler Murray. That's a tough thing to do, especially with a scrambler like Kyler Murray. They're not a fluke. I don't think we can call them a fluke anymore, and they should be respected. They're a top 10 rushing attack, and in my opinion, they have a top 10 defense, pass rushing wise, and just time of possession. They control the ball. Kenneth Walker is proving to be a superstar running back, and yeah, they're just a good football team. I like them a lot. Number 8, the Jets. They had a bad effort against the Patriots last week, but they re-solidified themselves. They re-solidified their status in the AFC as a surprise playoff team. Nobody expected them to do good, but they held time of possession by a mile over the Buffalo Bills and forced a few turnovers against, Josh Allen, who doesn't commit a lot. And it's against one of the best teams in football. Robert Saleh seems to have a solid scheme for a team that is already far ahead in their rebuild. The only con I see with the Jets is Zach Wilson's questionable play, and that's a big question mark for the team going forward. I don't think it's their year this year, but they're going to be a strong AFC team in years to come. They're sitting at number 8. Big win over the Bills. You're going to jump into the top 10 there, especially with a 6-3 record. Number 7, I got the Titans. Okay, so they lost. I have them jumping up here even after a loss simply because of their strong defensive play. It's not often you see Travis Kelce roll his helmet off the field like a bowling ball, but they're 5-3 with a top defense and rush attack in football. Right now, they need Tannehill back for maybe a strong AFC push like we saw in 2019, I believe it was, where they made a surprise AFC championship push. I can see it again. They're dogs on defense. They're so quick to the ball, and it's not often you see the Chiefs only putting up 17 points in regulation and kind of fighting for a win against Malik Willis and crew. Yeah. So they're going to be good once Tannehill comes back. They need their field general. Derrick Henry, obviously best running back in football on paper, but their defense, running attack, they look good in the AFC. Number 6, I got the Cowboys. It was a bye week, but Dallas seems to be a top offense in football still with injuries. They got injuries on their receiving core. They'll have to rely on, a strong rushing attack going forward. We know their defensive potential as well. They'll be poised to chase the Eagles in their division. Their defense looks very solid. They're very balanced for an NFC team. But, with CeeDee Lamb sideline, Michael Gallup sideline, pending, what Odell does, they'll have to rely, on Zeke and Pollard, for the next week. Number 5, I got the Vikings. This might be, the most critical I've been of a number 5 team in the power rankings, but, a close win against a bad football team has them dropping a spot here. Okay, they're 7-1. That's what's keeping them at number 5. But with close wins against bad teams, they need more dominating jackknife performances, while being 7-1 to solidify themselves as a top 3 team. Okay, they need to establish themselves as a higher threat. For me to see them as, a top threat in the NFC, even the NFC. I'm not even saying the NFL. They need to win, by a landslide here in one of these games. I see them ceiling. I see them conference championship, but my God, they need to dominate for me to see that, because they're going to get blown out in the wild card if they can't beat the Washington Commanders by more than 3. Number 4, I got the Ravens. They're catching fire, and, the defense controlled the pace of the game. That's something they've needed for a while now. The defense was kind of the question mark for them, letting up deep plays. Their offense has kind of been lackluster over the last few games, but, Lamar Jackson, come on, let's be honest. He's the last guy I'd say that can't get out of a slump. But they've won their last 3 games. They're 6-3, and once their offense starts to catch fire again, they're going to be very dangerous. Okay, they've had the potential to be 9-0 this season. They've only lost by a few points each time they've lost. Dolphins, Bills, and Giants, I believe the losses were. They've only lost by less than 10 combined points. And then I'll keep it short here with the last 3. Bills at number 3, Chiefs at number 2, number 1, the undefeated Eagles. Bills, most balanced team in the AFC in my opinion. They're going to have a trap game against the Jets, but that doesn't, I don't think that kind of proves where they are in the AFC. Come playoff time, I see them as a strong threat. Number 2, Chiefs, obviously, best offense in football. They were shown up a little bit by the Titans, but, once again, Patrick Mahomes found a way out. And, their defense came up big against, Malik Willis in the last half of overtime. Number 1, Eagles, 8-0. Jalen Hurts is my MVP right now. Most balanced team in football. We can go against their schedule all we want, but they didn't make the schedule, and they're 8-0. So, we can diss their schedule all we want, but they've dominated, a few good teams, Vikings to name one, and, they're the most balanced team in football. When they need to play good offense, they play good offense. When they need to make a strong defensive presence, they do that as well. So that is my NFL power rankings, and that will complete the show. I think we're about to hit the 20-minute mark here. And, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. This was fun, per usual, and this was episode 53. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the follow button on Spotify if you haven't already. I'm here every Wednesday for a podcast. I make side videos as well, so keep an eye out on the channel, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.